This is ESPN 1059 The Zone. We welcome in QB1, Michael Katz, biggest Southern Cal Trojan fan in Mississippi, covers the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss 2-0 in conference play. They go to Kentucky and win. They host Arkansas and win 41-35. Trinidad Chambliss, 412 yards, 2 TDs. Michael Katz, what was your takeaway on the Ole Miss Rebels on Saturday?
That Ole Miss can scheme it up offensively about as well as anybody. That was just a really impressive performance by Trinidad, and listen, you put in a backup quarterback in the SEC, and it's not always going to go as well as it did for Ole Miss. Trinidad was awesome. He looked completely in control. They put him in good positions. He really helped with the run game. He was accurate. He was smart with the ball. And they needed it because that was a game where, Taylor Green was going step for step with what Trinidad was doing. And, it came down to basically who made the first mistake, and Ole Miss recovered the one turnover of the game. But it's the SEC. You take the wins where you can, and as well as anybody, like the games, Ole Miss's games against Arkansas are just always bizarre, in one way or another. And survive in advance. I think that was impressive. And obviously, I think the defense, you need to see a little bit more from that group. But that's a good win. I think that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I agree. How bad do you think the Austin Simmons injury is? It sure doesn't look good when he's hobbling around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when he went back in for Trinidad, when Trinidad hurt his hand, it got worse, and he looked pretty bad on the sideline. And when we talked to Lane Kiffin last night, and he said he probably wouldn't have put him back out there in the second half in terms of availability. So, it'll be something to monitor again this week as things progress. As you know, Ole Miss plays things pretty close to the vest.
Sure, everybody does.
With the injuries, and Austin wasn't on the availability report towards the end of the week last week, and he was available. It's just I think in terms of what Ole Miss wanted to do offensively, Trinidad made the most sense. Will that be the case this weekend? I think we're just going to have to wait and see.
I don't think there's any doubt. No way Austin Simmons is healthy enough this weekend, in my opinion. I think this is Trinidad's team. It could be for good, depending on how this thing rolls out. Because, I mean, if he gets all the snaps this weekend against Tulane, and then you got LSU coming into town with that secondary, really, Austin hasn't played. I mean, if that's how it works out, by the time you get to the LSU game, Austin hasn't played that much. It looks to me like this could be Trinidad's team for a minute. How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because heading into the season, this was an uncontested thing, and I think Austin is a really good player. He's young, and then he makes some mistakes. I think the injury obviously kind of forced things here, but I don't know how Ole Miss sees it, but personally, I think there's two ways of looking at it. It's go with the hand that brought you there, which in this case, if Trinidad keeps playing well, it's probably hard to take them out. The offense looked really, really good in sync with him in there. Now, granted, I do think Arkansas's defense is pretty bad.
Oh, it's awful.
So,
it's one tier up from Mississippi State's defense from last year. So that should tell you. That's how I kind of look at it. I mean, Lane just worked that defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty appalling. So I think if it is Trinidad's show this week, seeing what he does against Tulane, I think is going to be really, really important because Tulane's defense is very good. Tulane is very good. So I think it'll be interesting to see that, but. They do have a lot invested in Austin though too, in terms of NIL and just all that they've kind of put into him is this being his team. It's going to be interesting. I think they're going to do whatever is going to win them games.
Sure.
And what that is right now, I don't know, but I think we'll know more after this weekend. I mean, if they're 4-0 heading into LSU week, and it is Trinidad this weekend, he plays well again, that's going to be a hell of a conversation heading into LSU week.
No doubt. Michael Katz, djournal.com, Ole Miss Insider. Rebs 3-0, 2-0 in conference play. And as Katz mentioned, they host the Tulane Green Wave, who just beat Duke. And John Summerall can coach. He's going to be if he's not the hottest name, he'll be one of the hottest names. I don't think he's going to take Virginia Tech or UCLA because those are crappy jobs, and he doesn't have to. But we'll see what else, kind of plays out here over the next 8 weeks as far as job openings. All right, what about the Ole Miss defense? They didn't look good.
Yeah, it's the run defense, I think, is concerning. And I asked Lane about it. I think it was last week, and he admitted they were missing some tackles and stuff, but maybe that the numbers didn't portray the whole picture because of the way that they were scheming things. And you take certain things away, you're going to have to give up certain things, and I do understand that. And I do know that, Taylor Green is dynamic, and he can just wreck you in the run game. But I also saw, the running back Washington run almost untouched for a 47-yard touchdown up the middle. So I think that has to get better, because as you get deeper into SEC play, teams are going to run the ball well. They're going to have better offensive lines. It's just going to get harder, and teams are going to want to wear you down deeper in the season. So I think that has to get better. I think the individual pieces are there. I think the defensive linemen are good. I think the linebackers are good, but they just kind of seem like they're out of position a little bit now, and then the tackling is a little sloppy. I know heading into this season, the talk was, how does this group match up with last year's? Because last year's was just historically great, that defense, especially the defensive line.
Sure.
Right now it's clearly not there. Could it get there by the end of the year? Maybe, but I think it's, if anything, it's more of it really makes you think back to how good that group was last year. That allowed 80 yards per game rushing. That's crazy.
Filthy.
Taylor Green himself had 111 or whatever against Ole Miss this past weekend. So, but that being said, this Ole Miss lost close games last year. 3 games by 13 points. When it came down to it, they couldn't get off the field at crucial moments against LSU, against Kentucky. It hasn't always been pretty these first 3 weeks with the Ole Miss defense, but they made the plays when they needed to. The 4th down stops against Kentucky, the big fumble recovery by T.J. Daugherty against Arkansas. I do think there is something to be said for closing games out. And again, maybe the numbers, and it hasn't all looked perfect, but they are, at the end of the day, making the plays they need to.
Michael Katz, Ole Miss Insider on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. They're 3-0, overall 2-0 in conference play. They host Tulane and LSU back-to-back here, 2 teams from the state of Louisiana. Are you ready to say that Harrison Wallace III, the receiver transfer from Penn State, that he's going to emerge as the guy for Trinidad or Austin this year?
Man, I think heading in, I really wasn't 100% sure what he was. Penn State threw so much to their tight end, and he was incredible. Just a different looking offense, and Harrison, I think, put up 700-something yards last year and was very good, but he, for the most part, wasn't the number one target because they were so dependent on their All-American first-round pick tight end. It's pretty amazing what he has done at Ole Miss so far. Just in terms of all 3 levels, the short stuff, the intermediate, the deep stuff. He seems to catch everything. And he seems to also have a really good relationship with either quarterback. It doesn't matter which one is in. He seems to be in sync. I think Caden Lee will get going. He had almost 900 yards last year. He's going to get his eventually. I think heading into the season, I thought that DeJon Stribling was going to have the role that Harrison Wallace did in terms of that guy who was going to emerge. And he caught his first touchdown this past weekend, and I think he is still a very good player, Stribling that is, and he's going to have he's going to have a nice year. But I'll put my hand up. I did not think it was going to be Wallace who was going to emerge from that group of really good transfers they brought in. It was always going to be one of them. It was just a matter of which one. And hand up, I didn't see it being Wallace, but he has been awesome so far. And he's a mismatch. He does everything well, and he's just a tough nosed guy. And I don't see any reason why he wouldn't continue being a go-to guy for either guy.
No, I'm with you. All right, Michael Katz, Ole Miss Insider on the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. And again, they'll host Tulane and LSU back-to-back weeks. Katz, also a Southern Cal alum. How do you feel about UCLA looking like a Division III team and firing their coach on Sunday?
I mean, I don't want to take, I don't want to take a victory lap or anything, but that was just such a tough situation. Chip Kelly leaving when he did kind of just left them in such a bad spot where they just sort of had to hire somebody. And I really like Deshaun Foster, and I know him personally a little bit. Really good dude, but he was just put in such a bad situation. But I mean, man, you bring in Nico and a good transfer class, and they've recruited pretty well too. And you thought they actually ended the season pretty strong last year. I think they were a game away from a bowl. I think they went 5-7, so it looked like things were kind of looking up. but man, the New Mexico game was that I think that was kind of the last straw. And I don't know if you saw the pictures, but the Rose Bowl was almost completely empty.
How far is that from Southern Cal's campus? How far is the Rose Bowl?
It's probably about like 15 miles, which in Los Angeles traffic could be like 2 hours. It just kind of depends.
That is crazy.
Yeah, if it's 5:00 p.m., it's going to take you a while to get to the Rose Bowl. I'll say that.
Dang. Okay. Did you go to most of the games or all the games when you were at Southern Cal?
No, I went to all of them.
Okay.
For better or worse.
Yeah, you weren't there at a great time, were you? I mean, I don't even remember. Tell me what was happening. What years?
I was there in 2011 and 2012. 2011 was great. They went 10-2, but they were ineligible for a bowl game because of sanctions.
Okay.
I think finished like number 5 or 6 in the country.
That was Kiffin.
Then the next year Yep. And then the next year they were preseason number 1 and went 7-6, and that was that was I think they were the first preseason number 1 team to ever finish the season unranked. So I saw a little bit of everything.
And so that was the year Lane got fired on the tarmac.
He got fired actually the next year, like 4 or 5 games in.
13. Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of saw the beginning of the end of it there.
And now he's a top 10 coach in college football. It's just
crazy.
It's
crazy how it works out, huh?
Yeah. No, I mean, he's wicked good as a play caller. And he's top 5 in the country as a play caller and top 10 as a overall. And some people, I mean, Ole Miss fans would have him top 5, and that's great. But, with Saban leaving and this guy leaving and that guy leaving, I think right now it's a great question on who you'd have. Dabo falling, taking a step back. Who would you have in your top 5? So, all right. Did we hit? Let's see. What anything else on? I mean, I know it's like, it's like Navy SEALs on college campuses as far as injuries. Anything else that you're raising an eyebrow at as far as 3 games in, Katz?
Not raising an eyebrow. I think the offensive line did play a lot better this week, and I think that was huge. Again, it was Arkansas, so you take it, I guess, a little bit with a grain of salt, given what they were overall defensively. That was a big question heading into, just after 2 games. The offensive line had really been up and down. It seems like they figured things out. Again, I think we're going to learn a lot against Tulane and obviously a lot against LSU because that defense looks absolutely insane right now over in Baton Rouge. But I think it's that was the one piece other than the defense figuring things out a little bit more. That was the one thing on offense was the offensive line. We knew the playmakers out wide in the backfield were all there, and the quarterback situation. But it was really, were they going to figure it out up front? The first 2 weeks, it was not always great. I know Austin was getting some flack for the turnovers, but 2 of those picks were with him getting hit, and that's pressure right up the middle. That can't happen. So it seems like it got better this week. I think it needs to stay that level, or else you're going to get to some of these defenses later in the year. The LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, all these teams with really, really good D linemen. It's going to get harder. So I think this was a good step, but I think I need to see it for another week or 2 before I fully believe.
Okay. I think that's fair. I don't think anybody jumps off the screen at me, Katz, in the SEC. Not even Georgia. Definitely not Texas, as they're really trying to find their way. Not Bama. I think LSU is good, but far from special. So I just think that's where we are right now with the portal spreading everything out. So like you said, we'll see what shakes out the next few weeks. All right, man. I hope you have a good week as you get ready for the Tulane Green Wave.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Michael Katz, djournal.com, Ole Miss Insider on the Out of Bounds show. And Trinidad Chambliss, 412 yards, 2 TDs. And he led the way as Austin Simmons couldn't. He played a couple of snaps, and he ran one and threw it. He actually went in and threw a 4-yard touchdown pass or something. And yeah, I mean, he was 1 for 1 for 4 yards with the TD, and he ran it once for 8 yards, and then they pulled him out. Kiffin said I wouldn't have put him back in, or he didn't think he would have put him back in. After they did all that, Trinidad, whatever, he hurt his hand or something.